All right, today we are going on a safari, but it's not the kind you're thinking of. We're diving into a world that's literally all around us, but completely invisible. We're going to explore the absolutely incredible, complex universe of protozoa, all happening inside a single drop of water. So here's the big question that just blows my mind. How can one single cell do everything that we can do? I mean, really think about that. Everything your body does with trillions of cells, eating, moving, reproducing, even hunting, these little guys do it all with just one. So how on earth is that possible? Well, let's find out. Okay, first things first. What even are protozoa? Well, the term itself covers this huge, super diverse group of organisms. But the key thing to remember is this. They are unicellular, meaning, yep, just one single cell. And they're eukaryotic, which I know sounds a bit sciencey, but it's really just a fancy way of saying their cell has a true nucleus and other specialized parts, kind of like our own cells. So what you've got is this single cell that's a totally self-contained, self-sufficient life form. It's wild. You can find them pretty much everywhere, mostly in water, but some have gotten really crafty and adapted to live as parasites. And their dinner plans? Super varied. Some of them hunt and eat just like animals, others just soak up nutrients from whatever's around them, and then there are the sneaky ones. They just steal it from a host. So if we really want to understand these creatures, we've got to look at their basic playbook, right? The fundamental strategies they use to survive and thrive. We're talking about how they move, how they eat, and how they, well, make more of themselves. Let's kick things off with how they get around. And how they move is actually fascinating. You've got some, like the amoeba, that kind of just ooze along using these things called false feet. Then there are others, like Paramecium, that are covered in these tiny hairs, cilia, that all beat together. Imagine thousands of tiny oars rowing in sync. Super cool. You also get some with these whip-like tails called flagella. And then you have the really lazy ones, I guess, like the parasite Plasmodium, which as an adult doesn't really move on its own at all. It just hitches a ride with its host. So what about making more protozoa? Well, most of the time, it's pretty simple. They just split in two. It's a process called binary fission, and it's super fast, super efficient, and makes perfect little clones. But when the going gets tough, maybe food is scarce or the water temperature changes, they switch things up and turn to sexual reproduction. This is their way of shuffling the genetic deck, creating new gene combinations that could give their kids a better shot at survival. All right, time to meet our contestants. First up, we've got a real celebrity. This is the one you almost definitely remember from science class. The famous, the formless, amoeba. A true shapeshifter. And this image just shows you how beautifully simple it is. Seriously, there's no front, no back, no permanent mouth. It's just a blob of cytoplasm held together by a flexible membrane. You can see that dark spot, the nucleus, that's the control center. And see that little star-shaped thing? That's the contractile vacuole. Think of it like a tiny automatic water pump, constantly bailing out excess water so the whole cell doesn't just pop. So you're probably wondering, how does a blob even move? Well, it's all about something called cytoplasmic streaming. The jelly-like stuff inside, the cytoplasm, is always moving. It flows forward, pushing out these temporary finger-like projections called pseudopodia, which literally means false feet. And then the rest of the cell just kind of flows into that projection. It's like a slow, oozing wave. So simple, but hey, it's incredibly effective for getting around. And get this, it uses those exact same false feet to eat. When an amoeba finds a tasty little snack, it just extends its pseudopodia to wrap all the way around it, completely engulfing it. This creates a tiny bubble inside the cell called a food vacuole. Then a bunch of enzymes get pumped in to break down the food, the good stuff gets absorbed, and whatever's left over, well, that just gets spit out the side. Done and done. Okay, so we've seen this simple blob. Now let's level up. Our next organism is a huge step up in complexity. Say hello to Paramecium, often called the slipper animalcule. And you can probably guess why just from its shape. Whoa, now just look at this. Unlike that formless amoeba, the Paramecium has a definite, fixed shape. It's held in place by this tough but flexible outer layer called a pellicle. It's got a specific spot for a mouth, a specific spot to get rid of waste. I mean, the internal structure is way more complex. This is a massive leap forward in cellular organization. And its movement, so much more elegant. Its entire body is covered in thousands of these tiny hairs called cilia, and they all beat in perfect coordinated waves, shooting it through the water with some serious speed and agility. That analogy of a microscopic galley ship with thousands of oars, it's perfect. They're all rowing in perfect unison, pushing it forward with this powerful, rhythmic stroke. But here's something that's just wild. It has two nuclei, and they have completely different jobs. You can think of the big one, the macronucleus, as the CEO. It's running all the day-to-day operations, keeping the lights on. The tiny micronucleus, though, that's more like the company's high-security vault. It's just there to safely store the precious genetic blueprints that'll be passed on to the next generation. And that little vault is key for something called conjugation. When it's time to, mix things up genetically, two paramecia will line up right next to each other. They'll temporarily fuse and basically trade copies of their micronuclei. Now, the goal here isn't to make new baby paramecia right away. It's all about swapping genetic information to create fresh, new combinations. And that genetic diversity, it's absolutely crucial for the survival of the species, letting them adapt to new challenges. Okay, so we've met a shapeshifter and a tiny speedboat. Both are free-living, pretty harmless. But not all protozoa play nice. Now we're going to shift gears and look at a truly notorious parasite. Let's talk about Plasmodium, the protozoan that causes one of the world's deadliest diseases, malaria. And just by looking at its structure, you can tell it's built for one thing and one thing only: invasion. It's completely stripped down. It doesn't need fancy parts for moving or hunting because its entire world, its entire life, is spent inside the cells of another organism. Its whole structure is designed to be the most efficient, stealthy, intracellular parasite possible. And here's the secret to its deadly success. Plasmodium has this incredibly complex life cycle that it can't complete in just one host. Nope, it needs two. It does the asexual part of its life inside a human and the sexual part inside a female Anopheles mosquito. This whole two-host strategy is the absolute key to how it survives and spreads. So let's follow its journey, shall we? It all kicks off with a mosquito bite. The mosquito injects these tiny little torpedo-shaped things called sporozoites into your blood. They make a beeline for the liver, invade the liver cells, and just start multiplying like crazy, creating thousands of new particles called merozoites. Then boom, they burst out of the liver cells and start invading your red blood cells. Inside the red blood cells, they multiply again and again, until those cells rupture too. It's this massive, synchronized bursting of red blood cells that releases all this toxic junk into your system, and that's what causes the terrible fever and chills of malaria. And to complete the cycle, some of these merozoites will then develop into male and female sexual forms, just waiting in the blood for the next mosquito to come along. And here comes that next mosquito. When it bites an infected person, it sucks up those male and female gametocytes. Inside the mosquito's gut, they finally get together, they fuse and form a zygote. This zygote then develops into something called an oocyst, which latches onto the gut wall. And inside that oocyst, thousands upon thousands of new sporozoites are born. These brand new sporozoites then travel up to the mosquito's salivary glands, where they just wait, ready to be injected into the next person, starting this whole terrifying cycle all over again. So, wow. We've seen shapeshifters, we've seen microscopic speedboats, and we've seen deadly parasites. Let's take a step back and zoom out for a second. Why should we even care? Why do these little single-celled organisms matter in the grand scheme of things? Well, the truth is, they're both friends and foes. On one hand, in ponds, lakes, and oceans, they're basically the lawnmowers of the microbial world. They munch on bacteria, keeping populations in check, and then they become food for bigger creatures. They are an absolutely vital cornerstone of aquatic food webs. But on the other hand, as we saw with Plasmodium, they can be absolutely devastating pathogens, causing unimaginable suffering and death. They really are, in every single sense, masters of adaptation. So from the humble, shape-shifting amoeba to the complex Paramecium and the downright deadly Plasmodium, we've really only scratched the surface of this incredible world. These single-celled organisms have been thriving on this planet for over 1 billion years. 1 billion years! Their success is just a staggering testament to how adaptable life can be. So the next time you see a puddle or a pond, just remember the secret universe teeming with life inside it. And maybe ask yourself, what can these tiny, ancient survivors teach us about the fundamentals of life itself? Hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive into the microscopic world, do me a favor and hit that like button. And make sure you subscribe for more explainers where we break down all sorts of complex stuff. Thanks so much for watching.